Hey guys! In today's project, I am going to take a little break from sewing the decades. The last one was pretty brutal. I need a refresher in I can't actually sew and I can't actually make things and I can understand what I'm doing. So I found this cute pattern, and the only thing that I like about this pattern, this coat pattern, is the hood. I love how it's a shawl collar and then it converts into a hood. Where I live, it rains like all the time. And I only own one jacket that has a hood, which is insane. So I'm going to sew a jacket, and I love this hood, but I don't love anything else about it. I'm going to break it up by adding a seam at the waist. I like the length of this one, but I already know that it's not going to fit me. I already know. I have a bigger lower half than I do upper half. And so in order to make it so it doesn't look super weird, if you add a seam at the waist and then make it more A-line, it fits better. I want it to fit really well, so I'm going to take my measurements and I'm going to put it into this pattern. The pattern will fit me, not these generic sizes. I don't know anybody who fits all the way down except my daughter, who's 12. These are industry standards. They just are very generic, you know, the perfect 36, 28, 36. So I'm going to take my measurements and I'm going to cut out this pattern. I'm going to take the pattern and I'm going to transfer it onto paper, and then I'm going to manipulate the pattern. Of course, when you mess around with patterns, even if you don't mess around with patterns, it's always a good idea to start with a, what is it called? It's like a mock-up. A sample. Woo, there we go. I got there eventually. You want to do a sample to make sure that the pattern is correct. I don't know how many patterns that I've made that just don't work. The fabric that I have, my husband got it for Christmas 2 years ago, and I love it. It's this red and white houndstooth tweed, and I love it. But again, it's expensive. And it's something that I don't want to cut into without knowing this is exactly right. So it might take me a couple tries, but I'll get there eventually. For the interfacing, I just got, this lining. It's just this satin, heavy satin lining. It has a tiny bit of stretch into it. I kind of like lining that stretches with you, and it's shiny, and I think it'll look really nice. Okay, and then I, of course, have a zipper, and then my interfacing is somewhere. So yeah, those are all of my notions. Now I just need to cut out the pattern. I'm going to trace it on dotted paper, manipulate it to what I want it to look like. We can sew up our sample, and then we'll move on to actually cutting it out and sewing it and getting a jacket that has a hood that I can wear during the winter time. Okay, so far, all I've done is take the front, the back, and the two sides, and the front lining, and put them on my own pattern paper. All I did was just trace it as is. I didn't alter it. I didn't do anything to it yet. If I was drafting my own pattern piece for this, I would have already figured this point out, which is find where I want this seam to be around. Because what I want to do is I want the jacket to be more A-lined. And it's hard to do as A-lined as I want and not have a seam there. It doesn't look right. And I just really like seams on jackets. I don't really necessarily like a one-piece jacket. Maybe because they don't fit me well. This is the front. Here's the front. I kind of go by my shoulder and I make sure it's all in center front. And I kind of hit my belly button. I'm like, it's about there, and that's what I marked. So I have a list of measurements for myself that I keep. Take measurements of yourself so that when you draft patterns, you just know it. It's 9 inches a side seam from my arm down here. This line is not absolute. When I make my muslin sample, so I'm not going to make it out of the nice stuff, I'm going to take this $2 a yard muslin and I'm going to mock up what I want. If I don't like this line, I can move it. I can move it up. I can move it down. I can do whatever I want with it. This is just a starting point. Most of the stuff that I draft is only a starting point. It's remarkable if I get it done right the first time. Designers that have been doing it way longer than I have just get it right at the first time. I kind of like it. It's more of a challenge. It's like, why didn't it work the way I wanted it to work? If I moved this, does this look better? I'm going to match all my notches. I'm going to walk the pattern, and then I'm going to mark each side seam. Or another thing that you can do is mark it from the hem up. You never want to do it from curves because this is a side seam, and you see how it's curved. You never want to measure on a curve because it's not going to be correct. I'm probably going to do it from the hem up so that it's all the same, because the hem is all the same on all of them. And then this side front, so this is the princess seam right here. And then the side front, I'm going to cut this off, put an inch or 5/8 is my seam allowance. And then from here, I'm going to kick it out a lot. I want this to be a cute A-line jacket. So that's what I'm going to do. Next step is to cut the waist, add the seam allowance, and then I'm going to kick out the side. From here, from my seam, I'm going to kick them out. And you should only have to do this on your sides. I shouldn't add any fullness to my front or my back. I just want to add an A-line kind of skirt to the jacket. And even if, let's say I add 5 inches, which is a lot. If I had 5 inches and I try it on, I'm like, I think it's just too much. Let's take it in. You could do anything you want when you draft patterns. That's why I really like manipulating patterns that I already have, that I already know work. It's just fun to add your own little fun details. Then it becomes your pattern. It becomes something that I manipulated to design to what I want. So I'm going to take my waist, do all of that, and then I'll cut it out of muslin and I'll get a sample going. Okay, so I've got back, side front, side back, front, and the lining. Lining's way off. Great. Should be the exact replica. Well, the lining, okay. Don't go from the bottom on the lining because the lining is, this is the hem. Anyway, because you're going to turn the coat under. That's why there's that. Okay, but if you match all the notches, it works out to be the same line. Okay, so that's the only one that you don't do from the bottom. Okay, so here's my waist. Going to cut line. Just made a seam. Some more pattern paper. I swear I had tape. There it is. And I'm going to add some seam allowance. 5/8 there. And we're going to draw a line here. And here, make sure it's level. But I need to add things that I forgot to add. So this is on the fold. Upper, back, cut 1. There's that. So here we go. I need to add seam allowance here. Lower, back, cut 1. So that's basically how you do adding a seam to anything. You just have to make sure when you cut it, you add your seam allowance in it, because then you'd be shorting it if you didn't add seam allowance and it wouldn't lay correctly because you took a bunch out. When we're talking about the sides, is more important that you remember to add this seam allowance back in because you're working with pockets. This is the side seam. And this is the princess line. So the princess line is the seam that goes in the front. It's this. And right here are some pockets. So it's vitally important, because we're cutting right into that pocket, that if we don't add the seam allowance back there, the pocket won't fit because you're taking a bunch out. Vitally important. If you make a seam, to add the seam allowances so nothing gets thrown off. So we're going to do the same thing, making it a seam. all our pieces are cutting out, so next we're just going to add fullness to the sides. Or not fullness, but more of an A-line structure to the sides. So here is this is the lower side seam in the front. I want to add a flare to this and go out like so. So I can't mess with this. This is my waist. If you make this bigger, it won't fit. If you make it smaller, it won't fit. So I can't mess with this right here. I kind of want to do it like that. So another line that I can't mess with is the side seam. But I just messed with the side seam, you might say. But I went ahead and I measured it. It's 19 inches. Actually, it's more 18 and 3/8. So this needs to fit the other half. So what do? Go in here, measure 18. So here's 18, 3/8. Okay, so as you can tell, it doesn't hit the straight. I'm going to take my hip ruler and is this one right? And there we go. That's adding a flare to the bottom of the skirt. And then what you do for one side, you do the other. You don't want to be unbalanced. I'm going to cut this out. There you go. So I added some flare to the bottom so that it's not as tight for me on the bottom. You never want anything to come to a point. It won't lay right then. I added 4 5/8 flare to the bottom. And what we do for one side, we do the other. I could probably just copy it. Okay, and there we have it. So our next step is to cut this out on our practice run, our muslin. When you make your sample, make sure that you do the lining, like all of it. I don't know if I have a zipper. I can just maybe not put the zipper in. So I'll have to go and look and see if I have something in my stash or if I can just get something super cheap. I have some muslin here. So I'm going to cut out and trace everything, and hopefully it all works out and I can just go from there. Okay, so I think I'm done cutting everything out. It was a lot to cut out, like just tons. And then I had to go and label everything because I was getting everything confused. It was just a lot, tons. But I think I'm done. Okay, I think everything has a friend. So now I'm going to assemble it, but I'm going to first put the top and the bottom together. Does that make any sense? If I hadn't taken that apart, that's what it would have been. Put them all together, sew it up, have my sample. If it fits and if it works, move on to the actual fabric. Let's get sewing. Okay, so I sewed the two pieces together, and so now we have all the pattern pieces like they should be in the pattern. Does that make any sense? According to the instructions, they want me to do the zipper first, which seems odd, but let's go with it. I'm overthinking it probably. Hand-based along stitching line for zipper. So I just pinned it on the wrong side, everyone. Oh, at least I didn't, sew it. Oh. Here, here, here. Now it's on the right way. It wants me to hand baste this in. Never been a fan of hand basting anything. I'll hand baste it. Baste it. Thimble. Now, I personally think it's fun to baste in a different color, because then it's easier to figure out what I need to rip out. And this is just to hold the zipper in place, because it's hard to sew a zipper with pins in it. I know they make zipper tape. I've never used it before, but I'm not a fan of using tape in case it gums up my machine. So you can see, whoops, that it's basted. Whoops. That red right there. Whoops. And now I can go sew it. So with my zipper foot, I'm going to sew it in, and then I'm going to take out my red basting. And then we'll move on to the next step, which is not the other side of the zipper, which I find odd. So we'll just see where it takes us. Okay, so one part of the zipper is in, and it looks pretty good. Okay, so let's move on. There's so much fabric everywhere. Okay, so we have to put the pockets in. These pockets are weird though, because you see how they kind of cut off? Usually they don't cut off. Usually they're like, so there's more pocket. I could have probably fixed that with everything else, but I didn't realize they're made for really shallow pockets. So here's one pocket done. And then I need to find the front side seam, upper front side. Does it match? No. What is going on here? Okay, one of them has to match. Or they can be the exact same thing. They're the exact same thing. I didn't do mirrors. Oh no. So I have to rip one of these out and turn it around. Oh my goodness. Okay. The correct side I wrote on them. And as you can see, there's a seam right here. So I did that completely wrong. And I have to rip out the seam and re-sew it and re-steam it, and then it'll look right. What a pain. At least I caught it now. I'm going to re-sew this, re-steam it, and then I can put the other side pocket on there. Okay, so it turns out that it was much worse than I thought. Like, they're completely wrong. So I re-sewed that one. I was like, but this still doesn't work. Then I realized neither does the other side. I need to put notches at the top that only match each other. And then you can't mistake them because you have the notches to match. There you go, problem solved. It's just another thing I have to fix on my pattern. No, that's the only thing I have to fix so far. All right, so I'm gonna re-sew them all. I think I'm getting confused because of the pockets being on the princess seam instead of the side seam, because a lot of them I do are on the side seam. So I think that's why I'm getting super confused, because kind of unusual. I have jackets that have the pockets at the princess seam, so it's not uncommon, but it is like a handful of them. Usually at the side, you know? So I'll redo this, and then it's going to be better. Be so much better. All right, so I sewed on the pocket and understitched it. A trick that I do, I feel like I should pass on, is I do one side at a time, so there's no question that this goes together. If I do both of them at the same time, I could mix them up, kind of like I just did, because I didn't do one side at a time, so I mixed up the pieces and then I had to rip it all out. I'm going to work on the other side. Yeah, and we'll just move on to the next one, but always do one side at a time. That way you don't mix up pieces and have to rip them out. I'm finished with the right, and now onto the left. Another idea, well actually not idea, but tip that I've learned over the years that I feel like I should share. When there's curves, it's hard to do a curved seam because you puckers a lot. But what I do is I put I make like an accordion, and then it's easier to pin. So I get on a lawn stitch and I put my finger on there and I let it stitch, but it's not going anywhere, so it's making an accordion. And this way it's easier because it's got some bend in it to stitch on there. Curves are probably one of the hardest things to sew, in my opinion. There's probably tricks to that, and I just don't know them. So I'm just pinning this princess seam along the line. And it is also going to be super stretchy on the princess seam because it's part on the bias. So I've got it pinned, and now I'm just going to sew it. I think I sew the pocket first, and then I go around the whole seam. I just did front pocket, both sides, and so now this is the back piece, and I'm pinning the side seams, or the side panels, they're not side seams, they're side panels, to the back piece. Then I'm going to sew that according to the instructions, as well as the side seams and the neck. I'll have it all put together, the shell, and then I'll just do the lining too, and then move on to the sleeve, which sleeves aren't my favorite. It's a set-in sleeve, so you have the hole and then you put the sleeve in. It's a little harder to do because you have the ease and all that. One step at a time. So we'll go like that. I'll finish pinning this, use the sewing machine, and then I'm going to do the lining, and then we'll come back to the sleeve. Okay, so here is my lining. Here is my shell. And then I sewed the sleeve seam. They want me in the instructions to baste so that the ease will be, I don't baste, so I just kind of ruffled the sleeve. It gives the same effect, I feel like. And then I have to sew the sleeves into this part. The side seams are pinned together, and then we come up and get the first notch, and we come up and get the next notch. And I always tell people, like, my students at least, you know, notches have friends. So match your friend.
Forever you and I, just you and me.
Okay, so that's the easy part. So far, so good. I remember at school, everyone would come and tell me that, no, it doesn't fit. Why doesn't it fit? And I'm like, well, because you have to make it fit. You tell the fabric what to do. Don't let it boss you around. Make it fit. Now that's a lot to fit. Okay, here comes the not fun part. That's a lot. I don't even know if I could fit that. You have to make it fit. You tell the fabric what to do. Okay, that's a little bit more doable. Like I said, one side's always really easy and the other side is not. It might have to do with like the bias cut, I think. It's more on the biased in one way, so it stretches more. So this insanely stitched piece, or pinned piece, is finally done. I mean, there's like 20 pins in here. It's insane. And so another trick is whatever the bigger side is on top so the feed dogs can stretch out the bottom. I learned that one too at school. I should probably pin the other side too while I'm at it. I don't know if you can see this, but this is so much ease to put into just this tiny little spot right here. So something's wrong. I don't know what, but it feels like it's going to just pucker like crazy. All I can do is try it and see what happens. Well, I'm gonna sew this up and see. If it's gonna work. Hopefully it'll work. Okay, so I've had enough of this. It fits. I like where this hits. I like where the pockets hit. I'm too short. And there's plenty of room. It's a jacket, so it's not supposed to be too tight. So I like it. It's gonna fit. The flare's nice. I like how I have extra room in the hips. So I'm finished. I'm finished with this. Like, it fits. Let's move on to the real thing. If I need to take any alterations in, it's not like I have room to play with. So that's the only thing that matters, is that it's not too small. And it's definitely not too small. It just fits really nice. Let's start the main thing. Get it done. Okay, so this is the mock-up. It fits really well. Of course, I'm gonna have be here. It's good in the shoulders. This is where my shoulders are. It sits right at my belly button, so that's good. And then I have these flares in here, and it helps because it's not so tight. I do like the length too. It's gonna be brought up a little bit, but it's just right above my knees, so it's not too long. I really like it. I must say, I'm so nervous to cut into this fabric. It's one of my favorites, and I'll be so sad if it just doesn't work. So we'll get to sewing the real thing. I just got done trying on the mock-up, and the one thing when I was sewing the whole entire project, I realized that I didn't have any indication that the lower part goes with the top part. There should be notches in there to indicate that these two match. Does that make sense? Because there's so many that look the same that it's hard to decipher which one goes to which one. So I have an upper side right here, front, and the lower side here. Okay, so I matched the seams like so. Let's do it the right way. Okay, so you're gonna fold the seam allowance, and I'm gonna fold this seam allowance. So it's like I sewed it together. So they match. And usually with lower, you do 2 notches, or back, you do 2 notches, and with front, you do 1 notch. Since there is 2 fronts, I'm going to make them in completely different places. So I'm going to make one, I think I'm going to do it on this side. So, and then come out, make your notch. So that tells me that this goes with this. This should have been something I did when I was drafting it. Oh, come on. And like I said, these don't, they just have a friend. And it just makes sure that you're putting the right pieces together. So that's my upper and lower side fronts. Okay, so that's all for the pattern making portion of this 2-part series. So tune in to the next video where I will actually cut into my fabric. Like I said, I'm so nervous. It's just so great. No, stop moving. So yeah, here it is. It's so, I love it. I love it so much. I should cut into it though, because it's not doing any good just sitting there, right? My lining to go with it. Kind of like it. A little bright inside. So thanks for joining me in drafting a pattern. Well, drafting. I am taking another pattern and making it my own. I guess that's my favorite thing to do, is take something that already exists and kind of manipulate it to be my own. Thanks for watching. Tune into the next video where I cut it up and make a cute hooded jacket.